The Big Issue. Breaking down the issues that matter.
Hello, listener. You're welcome to Leadership Podcast. It is yet another edition of The Big Issue. I remain your one and only regular host, George Agba. And of course, I would like to apologize for the slight delay. The program that is billed to start by every 5 o'clock was due to some technical hitches that's beyond our control. While as usual, with me here in the studio are our in-house analysts who are here bubbling with not just action, but reasonable action to take you on issues of the day as they come. Of course, we have Chibuzo Kaide.
Thank you, it's good to be here.
And of course, the very vibrant Paul Agbo.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Of course, before we go ahead with the big issue, we will appeal that you are via should endeavor to send your comment to this program because they contribute a lot in setting the agenda for robust discussion on the issues as we take them. And of course, the big issue for the day is PDP leadership crisis and the banana peel. Governors of the People's Democratic Party and elders of the party yesterday moved to save the national chairman of the party, Uche Secondus, from being removed from office. In doing so, they resolved to bring the national convention of the party forward to October instead of December, when his tenure, or the tenure of the National Working Committee of the party under his leadership, would have expired. The move to give Secondus a soft landing was to avert moves to force him to resign from office. The governors and stakeholders of the party resolved that a National Convention Planning Committee be immediately set up to begin the process of the convention by October. And of course, in doing so, the governors had to pacify one of their colleagues, Governor Nyesom Wike of Rivers State, who was the arrowhead in the plot to oust Secondus from office. Of course, the plot was aimed at stopping Secondus from recontesting the chairmanship position. Of course, Secondus' travail in the opposition party is not new. It follows a tradition long established in the party that each chairman never complete their terms and usually end up in controversial circumstances. Under 8 years of former President Olusegun Obasanjo, the party produced 6 national chairmen. And of course, there's one point about the party, which is the high turnover of the party's chairman, which many analysts and political observers have attributed to the internal contradictions and lack of internal democracy in the party. Since its inception, there have been more than 8 national chairmen of the party, and the high turnover was recorded most during the Obasanjo administration. And of course, at the inception, Chief Solomon La, former governor of Plateau State, was the pioneer national chairman. And of course, he was the one who had that little bit of independence. He left in 2002 and was replaced by Barnabas Kimade, who initially had the backing of the all-powerful Obasanjo. But after he ran foul of Obasanjo, who had hijacked the soul of the party from the National Working Committee, it did not take much seat for the president to install one of his old comrades in the military, the man that served under him as Federal Commissioner for Education in the 70s, Colonel Amadou Ali, as the new chairman of the party. But Amadou Ali suffered the same fate Gimade suffered, as he was quickly replaced by Awudu Ogbe, who in turn was controversially manipulated out in favor of Vincent Ogbolafo. And of course, the drama that played out during the Awudu Ogbe's ouster was alleged or reported that Awudu Ogbe was forced to resign by Obasanjo after having a sumptuous meal of pounded yam and bitter leaf soup with the former leader. And of course, in all the 2 term in office, Obasanjo produced 6 chairmen between the late President Umar Musa Yar'Adua and incumbent Goodluck Jonathan. There were 3 chairmen of the party. And of course, the resignation of Adamu Muazu was considered a denouement to the protracted battle between him and Jonathan's loyalists, who had maintained that he contributed to the loss the party suffered during the 2015 presidential election. Then came Ahmadu Sharif, whose tenure was the shortest as PDP national chairman, and produced the Ahmadu Makafi-led caretaker committee after a parallel convention. Currently, Secondus is facing similar fate like all other past national chairmen of the party. And now, from what has been said, none of the PDP national chairmen has demonstrated streak of independence, as they are largely seen as lackey of the president in power, only with the exception of Solomon La, who maintained little mindset that may have offended Obasanjo. Could this be what could actually be the reason for the travails of this national chairman of the party? That is what we tend to interrogate. What do you think has been the problem with PDP when it comes to leadership, sustained leadership?
Well, first of all, it's a political party. A political party in a country that is still struggling to come to terms with or to imbibe democratic ethos, as it were. The PDP came up shortly after. In fact, it was the party that heralded the democratic age. And coming from a military arrangement and a military mentality, military psyche, to some extent, many would tend to understand why they had the early rumbles, because people had not come to terms with the fact that, okay, this is how democracy got to work and not to work. But let me just, go back a bit. I think where the whole, and it is debatable anyway, I think where the whole issue started was when, after the civilian agitation for a return to democratic rule advanced so broadly and got a lot of traction, the military, in trying to hand over power, the military establishment, let me use that expression, in trying to hand over power, was still not ready to let go of power. And so they found a way of putting one of their own in charge. And by that I mean General Olusegun Obasanjo. Now, it is neither here nor there what their motives were. But for them, their thinking was, we need, I think General Abibi made reference to this the last time in his interview. The thinking was to bring somebody who is pan-Nigerian and whose belief in a united, indivisible Nigeria was prime. And so they felt, according to IDP, that the best person for the job at the time was Obasanjo. Never mind that there was a talk about, should we get somebody from the Southwest to replace MKO Abiola, But overall, what we now eventually saw in the evolutionary process of PDP under Obasanjo's rule was a distilling of same military mentality in the administration of the party, such that we had the likes of Solomon La. I'm not sure Solomon La left when he wanted to leave. I think he left because he saw, and his set left because they saw that they were being muscled out of the party. So because there were other people too, I've had the opportunity of interacting with a few of them. Olapo, Benga Olapo Hashim, he was one of the critical members in the process of PDP being registered and the early phases of PDP's administration. And he gave a picture of how they intended for the party to run. All of the structures were supposed to function in a certain way. They could call in ministers and ask them questions and ensure that party manifestos were heeded to in governance and in party, But along the line, maybe because Obasanjo, being a military man, had not evolved out of that command control system and probably didn't have as much latitude, if you will, or the orientation or the mindset didn't fully key into the need to have much more dialogue than give commands. Things eventually broke up, and then the push and pull for power retention and who controls the power block and all of that came in. So eventually it affected the party structure and affected the psyche of the party. And ever since, the party couldn't recover from that. And so the power blocks kept shifting. It shifted from whenever there's the president was solely, whenever there was a very influential president, you have a very, the party move in the direction of the president. And when you don't have the president, or when you have a relatively weak president, you have a very strong governors forum bloc. So these are the two elements that have shaped the way and the manner PDP has operated. Now, to a large extent, some will argue that the way these power blocks have managed the party have not been, as they seem to have focused so much on power retention and the politics rather than growing the party the way it ought to, such that it reflects in quality of governance in the overall. But give and take, the party is still here. It has managed somehow to maneuver and meander through all of the tough challenges that has come its way. At some point, many people felt, oh, this is the end of the party. As of 2016, when the Ali Sheriff and Ahmed McCarthy crisis started, a lot of people felt, okay, this is the end of the party, because as of the time, there was no stabilizing bloc, there was no stabilizing force, which would have been the presidency. They didn't have that anymore, and now you have two very strong blocks pulling at the heart of the party. So many people felt, okay, this was the end of it. But for some, I don't know whether to call it a stroke of brilliance or some stroke of good luck or something, they maneuvered through that and they came off stronger. Going into a national convention, produced presidential candidate and contested the election. So the party has had a checkered history. However, many would expect that some of the crises we are seeing haven't gone through the experiences they've had in the past shouldn't be what we ought to be seeing now. Of course, parties must have crises. Parties must have a push and pull. But the quality of the kind of crisis you have is a reflection of whether you have learned lessons over the years and whether you are evolving in the right direction.
Well, thank you, Uche Secondus, because the point you raised here is sacrosanct. Because at the end of the day, you just had to trace the roots of this leadership crisis to its roots, in the sense that it was the foundation laid. And of course, considering the very first president the party produced, former President Obasanjo, who happened to come from a military background. Baba, as Obasanjo was called then, had this kind of militant approach in dealing with the party. And you see, there was a bit of that trace of dictatorship. So that at the end of the day, even as president, who is supposed to be a leader of the party and was supposed to operate in a manner that would allow internal democracy, was too authoritarian. And of course, you can remember this incident where they said that after bringing one of the national chairmen to a sumptuous meal of pounded yam, considering that hospitality, he now gave the man the shock of his life. He now asked him to resign there and there after eating that pounded yam. Paul, what Chibuzo did was to trace the root of this party crisis to the root, through its foundation. It was the way the party started. and those who started the party. What do you think?
Well, President, with due respect to former President Olusegun Obasanjo, he laid a very, very bad foundation for the People's Democratic Party, in the sense that he came with this military, coercive, regimental mentality, where you cannot question your superior. If you recall, you said 8 chairmen. Actually, PDP has had 9 chairmen.
I said over 8.
Alex Kwame was there for about 3 months or so. In the military regimental setting, you don't query, you don't question, you obey, and that is why the average lifespan of a national chairman PDP remains about before Secondus within the just about 1.5 years to 2 years. Even at the slightest objective criticism of the president's action or the leadership of the PDP generally is seen as an affront to the personality of the president. And that is the mentality in Africa generally. Except places like South Africa, where you have decent democracy, Botswana, and the rest. But most African states, inclusive of Nigeria, even simple constructive criticism is seen as a top-down,
a challenge,
a top-down on the person of the leadership,
a show of
power, or like competition, and that is what is reflecting even at the state level. Nobody, and that is why our governors operate like emperors, and it brings to question the recruitment processes of leadership in Nigeria. So that is the foundation Obasanjo succeeded in laying for the PDP. It weakens the party structure, the National Working Committee, because at any time they will be removed, especially the leadership, the national chairman. Well, and that is not a good foundation for the party. There's a popular saying that catch a problem before it gets out. Unfortunately, the PDP tried to catch their problem, but they couldn't hold on to it until the 7 NWC members tendered their resignation. And it will continue to, if care is not taken, it will continue to haunt the party.
Well, thank you very much. But now, you see, when Chibuzo was trying to trace the root of this leadership crisis in the party, we discovered that it had to do with the president that the party produced,
Yes.
Obasanjo.
Yes.
But now, PDP is in the opposition without a sitting president. And Secondus is facing the same fate. Where do the banana peels that often sweep this national chairman, where are they coming from? Because now one would have said there's no president who wants to engage the national chairman in a tussle to let him know that, yes, I'm in control here.
It's coming from funding. It's funding of the party. The man with the biggest purse, the man with the war chest, tried to dictate the direction of the party. And everything points towards 2023. Everything points towards the direction of 2023. Some people see Secondus as somebody that will meddle into the selection processes, internal selection processes of PDP.
Especially the presidential.
From the State House of Assembly down to the presidential election. Because how do you start? The selection of the election of candidates starts from, it involves delegates. And the delegates start from the ward to the local government, to the state, to the zonal. So I know, and the chunk of the delegates come from the ward. And anything, no matter what you do at the state level, it is Abuja. It is Abuja that will send electoral officers. If you are not in good relationship with Abuja, especially the national chairman, you stand the risk of losing not only you, even your anointed candidates, aspirants. So that is why some people see Secondus as a threat. So everything boils down to 2023. And if I have the money and I'm the one and I'm supporting the party and I don't like the actions of my national chairman, you know what will happen? I may not come out openly to say, look, I don't want it.
That is
But I can go through proxy.
a case of he who pays
Yes.
the piper.
It takes its own.
Take it home.
So that is what is playing out.
Thank you very much.
And now those people, those people seem to have won a bit because Secondus may not contest at the October convention.
Well, viewer, before we continue, let's just quickly take a short break. We'll be back in a moment.
The Big Issue. Breaking down the issues that matter.
Welcome back. This is Leadership Podcast. And of course, it is the big issue. And the big issue of the day is PDP leadership crisis at the banana peel. And of course, we are probing, interrogating the consistent leadership crisis in the major opposition party in the country that has resulted in a massive turnout of national chairmen within very short space of time. Paul, you said something here, and of course, you identified funding as part of the problem.
Yes.
But in this case, I think if I must be a bit fair to the party by not being too specific, River State Governor Nyesom Wike is the man that holds the ace in the party when it comes to funding, because
Yes,
it is
of course.
considered that he's one of the major
Contributor.
contributors
Yes.
to the financial strength of that party.
Yes.
And it was Wike that brought Secondus to power. Or let me say, it was his influence.
Yes.
How come Wike was the man that ensured that Secondus become national chairman? Is the same man fighting?
Yes, Secondus will not take that fight. Will not take the bullets from Port Harcourt. Just like that. And fizzle out. Because in politics, actually Secondus is Wike's senior. When Secondus was River State PDP chairman, Wike don't sit on the same round table. Let us say it. It was Secondus and the governor then that were running the show in River State. So that memory is still at the back of Secondus' mind. He anytime he looks at what is happening around him, he can't just fizzle out. He can't just chicken out. Because Wike is the sitting governor, he has the power of the purse and things like that. But politically, Secondus has grown through the ranks. It's not easy for a man to spend 12 years as a member of the NWC in PDP. He has grown to so solid in the party that he cannot just be wished away easily. And I give it to him for resisting, for not just resigning. It would have been the biggest blunder in his political career. He fought the war. He fought it And at least in diplomacy, they say you give out concession and also have some. Actually, he lost 2 months, and he also lost the chance of the contesting. But he was not forced into resignation.
You said something, Paul. Please let me make this observation. You said, good, it was Wiki that was instrumental to Secondus becoming national chairman.
Yeah.
And of course, when you want to compare the two in terms of politics, even the politics of the party, Wiki is not where Secondus is supposed to be because he's more experienced,
He's not experienced.
more connected,
Yes.
and he's senior in all ramifications.
Yes.
But in this case, you know that
Nigerian politics.
whatever the
money
case
politics.
is, you must not bite the finger that fed you.
That's true.
Yes. No matter how senior he is, Wiki in terms of politics, and especially PDP politics, one thing he should have understood is that that is the finger that fed you. So you swallow your pride.
The
Don't you think so?
Secondus actually bites the finger that fed him.
Yes, that is why you say Secondus will not tolerate, or he will not want to sit
But the way
down.
and manner the governor was going about the issue was not really democratic.
Chibuzo, you think so?
As a kinsman, as a kinsman.
You think so, Chibuzo?
Well, most of the things he has said are spot on, but I think there's another dynamic to what is playing now. You know, before you have to look at the period before the 2019 elections. Before the 2019 elections, after Secondus emerged, it was clearly a Wiki game, purely a Wiki game, and it was understandable. It was about the biggest, donor to the party. But I remember vividly while McCarthy, before Secondus era, while McCarthy was there as caretaker committee chairman, national caretaker committee chairman, he kept making references to party stakeholders in your states. Put your houses in order, because we are expecting new entrants into the party. At the time, the rumor was heavy that they were going to have some party chieftains return to PDP from the APC, but it was not really clear, how it was going to be like. So by the build-up to 2019 elections, the big boys started leaving the APC. The NPDP bloc started leaving the APC, and they made a return to the PDP. And that changed the dynamics within the PDP. So it is expected that when you have an equally influential bloc, like the new PDP return, things were never going to be the same. Whether Wike went about his tussle with Secondus the right way is neither here nor there, because it's now a case of everybody fighting for your interest and ensuring that your interest is still protected in the framework of the party. However, for Nigerians looking from the outside in, Nigerians are not so much interested in all of the dynamics of who does what or who doesn't do, most of what's being played out. Nigerians are not so much interested in the personal interests of the actors. What Nigerians perhaps, at the risk of speaking for all Nigerians, what most Nigerians will be looking out for is a party that has learnt lessons, a party that is ready to do an election of 2023 with a different kind of mindset, a mindset that is focused on providing quality leadership. As it stands, whether the party has provided quality opposition remains a matter for debate. It has been one of the fundamental things even party members and some non-party members have raised over time. Of course, they've given out good press statements, the issues on the go and all of that, but people expect more from them. There was a time the deputy Senate president suggested the setting up of a shadow cabinet. A shadow cabinet Of course, they criticized it. Oh, of course, the ruling party at the time criticized that they wanted to form a party they wanted to form a government within a government. But and that kind of practice or system is more of a parliamentary arrangement than a presidential arrangement. But nothing stops the party from coming up with a structure or a system that ensures that they don't just criticize what government is doing, but provide practical direction on how things should be on finance, on security, on you name it, on education. I would have expected that by now the party would have set up a clear roadmap on how it wants to go about education, which is fundamental to why our large youth force are not properly maximized. What is PDP's position on these issues? What is PDP's position on healthcare? Those are the kind of things Nigerians want to see. These are the kind of things the international community wants to see. Those are the kind of things the non-political elites want to see. Good and expectedly, these push and pulls will happen within the party, control and all of that, but it will come across as a party that the party has not learned much from its previous experience if it continues to go in the path of parochial pursuit for power, rather than ensuring the larger populace that they are ready to provide quality leadership.
Thank you, Chibuzo, because when you said it, you spoke about whether the party has actually provided the kind of opposition that will keep the government of the day on its toes. And of course, why Nigerians are worried about the PDP is that apart from providing constructive opposition, as the major opposition in the country, PDP, by way of democracy, is an alternative government. And of course, the worry of Nigerians is that the major leadership crisis playing out in the party very often is the lack of internal democracy. And of course, the ruling non-progressive Congress is gradually doing the same line. But how can we trust a political party that cannot put its house together to rule the country? Well,
like I said earlier on, our recruitment process has been faulty. The way we recruit leaders into position has been faulty in the past 21 years or so since the Fourth Republic started in 1999, where people do things with so much impunity, and nothing can be done. One man wants to instill on the entire population his ways. In some other clients, especially in Africa here, you saw what happened to President, one of the presidents of South Africa, Zuma party, before Zuma, Thabo Mbeki. It was a party that asked him to step aside. Dear, party supremacy is something that you cannot, one individual cannot challenge.
Exactly.
You see what is happening to Zuma. Well, in Nigeria, it will not happen. Because in South Africa, the party is above any other person, including the leadership. There's a policy that the party must follow. But in Nigeria here, everything is all about...
sorry to cut you short. Don't forget that was what Osomole was insisting on, that party supremacy must prevail. And I think that is what Konzomo Osomole in the ABC.
You see the way and manner structures have been working. Legislative structure have been working. Even you look at it from the local government to even the federal level, is worse. It is worse at the state level, because the state assembly are just like an appendage, rubber stamp
of the executive.
And the governor govern the state by executive fiat. Anything he says, go to some state capital without the governor, nothing happens. Even commissioners don't even go to office. So that is how governance is in Nigeria. And it's so disappointing that Nigerians are stuck are stuck with these two major parties that are not providing leadership direction. A party that is finding it difficult to govern itself, party administration, how can it chart way for the entire country? So Nigeria are just even going to 2023 election. Like I wouldn't want to use any strong word, but as it stands now, there's no direction on both sides.
Well, you see, I agree with you, Paul. You see, let's now look at the country like the United States, where we copied our own system of government from the presidential system of government.
So you just mentioned the US. Look at Governor Cuomo.
Of course.
Sexual accusation of sexual harassment. And abuse of office has led to his resignation. He's leaving in the next 2 weeks.
Interestingly,
but in Nigeria, you cannot raise issues.
His party members
yes.
are the ones
pushing,
totally,
including the President Biden. But in Nigeria, we've had several cases where even people in Abuja have to back their own.
Their own is
to avoid being ridiculed. You know the story.
Of course. That is why I was saying, like now in the United States, the two major parties, or the only two political parties there, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, you hardly hear of infighting within the party. And this, most Nigerians believe, is affecting governance of Nigeria. Because at the end of the day, if you can't handle a larger entity, that if you cannot handle your own house, which is now in this case your passion, how can you handle a larger entity?
And that is why Nigerians are in a helpless situation. Yeah. Nigerians are in a helpless situation. A party that cannot handle its own internal issues of governance, issues of leadership, cannot be trusted. And that is a fear. That is a fear now. That is a fear. APC's own is coming. If the Buni-led
for the fact that we single out PDP here does not mean that APC,
there are some people that left the office.
APC's own is there.
Remember,
it's for want of time that we didn't even combine the two.
Somebody nearly hijacked the party after Oshomole left. He's still there. He has loyalists. They might be somewhere still talking and following what the position of Keyamo and others. That issue is still there. Remember, they are done with the World Congresses. They are heading towards local government. The issue is still there. We don't want to dive into that one, but they have their own issue. So that is why I say, look, Nigerians are in a helpless situation because as it stands now, which other party? They talk about third force. What can the third force do? In the next 500 days to election. So, but we still have some glimpse of hope. If after the two parties conduct their national convention, if there's no fault in the processes leading to the recruitment of their new leadership, maybe we'll have some sense of hope that the new leadership will chart a new course for.
Well, thank you, Paul. Viewer, that is the much we can take for today's edition of The Big Issue. Join us same time tomorrow for another wonderful episode of this program. For now, it's goodbye.